Someone help me, Jesus.
I never thought I would be the girl in the news story. I never thought I would be the one whose face appeared on a missing poster, stapled to telephone poles and shared across social media with desperate pleas for information. I never thought I would become a statistic, a case number, a file sitting on some detective's desk while my mother paced the kitchen floor wondering if she would ever see her daughter again. But that is exactly what happened to me. My name is Lily Monroe, and when I was 16 years old, I was taken from a school parking lot in broad daylight. I was thrown into the back of a shipping container, driven across state lines, and nearly lost forever to a world that treats girls like products to be sold. I'm telling you this story not because I want your pity. I'm not looking for sympathy or attention or any of the things people sometimes accuse survivors of wanting when they share their experiences. I'm telling you this story because of what happened in that container. Because of the prayer I whispered into the darkness. Because of the man who should have driven past me, but did not. Because of the impossible, unexplainable, undeniable moment when heaven reached down into my nightmare and pulled me out. If you have ever wondered whether God hears you, if you have ever felt invisible, forgotten, alone in a darkness so complete that you cannot imagine anyone knowing where you are or caring enough to find you, if you have ever questioned whether prayer actually does anything at all, then I need you to keep reading. I need you to hear what I have to say. Because I was in the darkest, most hopeless place a person can be, and I learned something that changed everything I thought I knew about faith, about miracles, and about the way God works in this world. This is not a made-up story. This is not an exaggeration. This is not a fairy tale wrapped in religious language to make it more palatable. This is my life. This is what happened to me. And this is how I learned that even when no one on earth knows where you are, there is someone who does. To understand what happened to me, you need to understand who I was before that day. I grew up in Millbrook, Texas, a town so small that most maps did not bother to include it. We had one grocery store, one gas station, one diner where the same waitress had been working since my mother was a girl, and one high school where everybody knew everybody and secrets lasted about as long as morning dew. My family was not rich, but we were not poor either. We lived in a modest house on Clearwater Road, the kind of house with a porch swing that creaked when you sat on it, and a backyard where my daddy used to grill burgers on Sunday afternoons before he left us when I was 12. Mama worked as a nurse at the county hospital, pulling double shifts more often than not, and I helped out by taking care of my little brother, Noah, who was 10 years old and convinced he was destined to become either a professional baseball player or an astronaut, depending on which day you asked him. I was quiet. That is the word people always used to describe me. Teachers wrote it on my report cards year after year. Lily is a quiet student who completes her work diligently. My relatives said it at family gatherings. Oh, that Lily, she's such a quiet girl, always got her nose in a book. Even my friends said it, though they meant it kindly. Lily's quiet, but once you get to know her, she's really funny. I never minded being quiet. I liked observing people more than talking to them. I liked listening to conversations and noticing the little things others missed. The way someone's smile did not quite reach their eyes, the way a person's hands moved when they were nervous, the way words could say one thing while meaning another entirely. Being quiet made me invisible in a lot of ways, and for most of my life, I thought that was a good thing. I did not realize that invisibility could also make me a target. My routine was the same every single day. I woke up at 6:30, showered, got dressed, and ate breakfast with Noah while Mama rushed around getting ready for work. I walked to school because it was only a mile away, and I liked the fresh air in the mornings, the way the Texas sunrise painted the sky in shades of orange and pink that made me feel like God was showing off. After school, I walked home, usually with my earbuds in, listening to music or podcasts or sometimes just the sounds of my own thoughts. I helped Noah with his homework, started dinner, so it would be ready when Mama got home, and spent my evenings studying or reading or texting with my best friend, Carmen, about nothing in particular. It was a simple life, a predictable life, a safe life. Or so I thought. I did not know that for 3 weeks before that Friday, someone had been watching me. I did not know that a white van had been parked near the school gates almost every afternoon, its occupants taking notes on which route I walked, what time I left, whether I was alone or with others. I did not know that a man in a gray jacket had followed me home twice, keeping enough distance that I never noticed him, memorizing the rhythm of my steps and the moments when I was most distracted by my music. I did not know that I had been chosen. They picked me because I was quiet, because I was predictable, because I walked alone, because no one was waiting for me immediately after school, because I was exactly the kind of girl who could vanish without anyone noticing for hours, maybe even days. They had done this before. I was not there first. They had a system, a process, a business model as cold and calculated as any corporation. Find the quiet ones, learn their patterns, wait for the perfect moment, take them fast, move them faster, sell them before anyone even realizes they are gone. I was supposed to be just another transaction. But something happened that they did not anticipate. Something happened that no one could have predicted. Something happened that I still cannot fully explain, even now, even after all these years. And that something started with a prayer. The Friday it happened started like any other Friday. I woke up tired because I had stayed up too late the night before finishing a history project on the American Revolution. Mama had already left for an early shift, and Noah was still asleep, so I made myself a cup of instant coffee, which I had just started drinking that year, feeling very grown-up about it, and reviewed my notes one more time before heading to school. The day passed in a blur of classes and conversations, and the usual high school chaos. Carmen and I ate lunch together in our usual spot near the gym, talking about a boy she liked, and a test she was worried about, and the plans she had for the weekend that did not include me because her family was visiting her grandmother in Houston. I remember feeling a little lonely at the thought of spending the weekend without her, but I told myself it would be fine. I would catch up on reading. I would watch movies with Noah. I would help Mama with the garden she had been meaning to plant for months. After school, I had to stay late to work on a group project for my English class. We were supposed to be meeting in the library, but half the group did not show up, so I ended up doing most of the work myself while the two people who did come scrolled through their phones and occasionally offered unhelpful suggestions. By the time we finished, it was almost 5 o'clock, and the school was nearly empty. I packed up my things, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and walked out the side door that led to the parking lot. I remember the quality of the light that evening. It was that golden hour time when everything looks softer and warmer and more beautiful than it really is. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars belonging to teachers who were still inside and a couple of students waiting for late rides. I put in my earbuds and started walking toward the sidewalk that would take me home. I was listening to a song I loved, something slow and melancholic that matched my mood. I was thinking about the weekend, about Carmen being gone, about the history paper I still needed to proofread. I was thinking about what I would make for dinner and whether Noah had remembered to feed the dog. I was not thinking about danger. I was not thinking about the white van that had been parked across the street every day that week. I was not thinking about the fact that I was alone in an empty parking lot as the sun began to set. I did not hear the footsteps behind me. I did not sense the presence drawing closer. I did not have time to scream or run or fight. One moment I was walking, humming softly to my music, lost in my own little world. The next moment, something cold and damp pressed against my face. A chemical smell invaded my nostrils, sharp and sweet and wrong. My vision blurred. My legs gave out beneath me. I tried to struggle, tried to call for help, but my body would not obey my commands. Strong arms caught me as I fell, and a voice somewhere above me said something I could not understand. And then everything went black. I do not know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, I thought at first that I was dreaming, one of those nightmares where you are trapped somewhere and cannot get out, where you scream but no sound comes out, where you run but your legs move like they are stuck in molasses. I blinked and blinked, waiting for my eyes to adjust, waiting for the shapes to make sense, waiting to wake up in my bed and realize it had all been my imagination. But the darkness did not lift. The cold metal beneath me did not warm. The reality of my situation did not change. I was lying on a hard floor, my cheek pressed against something that felt like ridged steel. The air was stale and tasted like rust, and something else I could not identify, oil, maybe, or exhaust fumes. My head throbbed with a pain so intense it made me nauseous, and when I tried to sit up, the world spun violently around me. "No," I whispered. "No, no, 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 no." I reached for my backpack, but it was gone. I fumbled for my phone, but my pockets were empty. I tried to see something, anything, but the darkness was absolute, not the darkness of a room at night, where your eyes eventually adjust and you can make out shapes and shadows, but the darkness of a sealed space with no light source at all. I was inside something, a box, a container, something metal and cold and completely, terrifyingly enclosed. I scrambled to my feet, my hands outstretched, feeling my way through the blackness. My fingers touched walls on every side, cold metal, ridged and solid, close enough that I could barely take 4 steps in any direction. The ceiling was low enough that I could touch it if I raised my arms. There was no furniture, no windows, nothing except the metal floor and the metal walls and the metal ceiling and me. I found what I thought was a door and pushed against it with all my strength. It did not move. I pounded on it with my fists, screaming until my throat burned. "Help, someone help me, I'm in here, please help." No one answered. I kept pounding, kept screaming, until my hands were raw and my voice was reduced to a ragged whisper. Then I heard them. Voices. Muffled, distant, but definitely human. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to make out the words. "Straight through to Phoenix, no stops, she won't cause trouble." "What about the schedule? We're behind." "Boss says move fast. The buyer wants her there by Monday." "What if she—" "She won't. They never do, just drive." A door slammed somewhere outside my prison. An engine roared to life. And then the floor beneath me began to move, vibrating, swaying, shifting with every bump in the road. I was in a truck. A shipping container in the back of a truck. Being driven to Phoenix. To a buyer. I had been taken. For a long moment, I could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything except stand there in the absolute darkness while panic clawed at my chest like a living thing trying to escape. Then the full weight of my situation crashed over me like a wave, and I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. The hours that followed were the longest of my life. Time lost all meaning in that darkness. I could not tell if minutes were passing or hours. I could not tell if it was still evening or if morning had come. I could only feel the motion of the truck beneath me, the constant vibration, the occasional lurch when we hit a pothole or the driver braked too hard. I cried until there were no more tears left. I screamed until my voice gave out entirely. I pounded on the walls until my hands were bruised and bleeding. No one heard me. No one came. The truck just kept driving, mile after mile, taking me farther and farther from everything I knew, everyone I loved, every hope of being found. I thought about Mama. By now, she would be home from work. She would be wondering why dinner was not ready, why I was not there, why I was not answering my phone. She would call Carmen, who would tell her I had stayed late at school. She would call the school, which would tell her I had left hours ago. She would start to worry. Then she would start to panic. Then she would call the police, and the police would tell her that they could not officially report me missing until 24 hours had passed. 24 hours. How far could this truck take me in 24 hours? I thought about Noah, my little brother who depended on me for so many things, who would help him with his math homework, who would make him the grilled cheese sandwiches he loved, cut diagonally the way he insisted was the only right way to cut them, who would sit with him during thunderstorms when he still got scared even though he was too old to admit it. I thought about Carmen, my best friend who was in Houston with her grandmother, having no idea that her best friend had vanished from the face of the earth. Would she blame herself for not being there? Would she wonder if things would have been different if she had walked home with me? I thought about my father, the man who had left us 4 years ago, who sent birthday cards with money in them and called on Christmas and otherwise pretended He did not have a family in Millbrook, Texas. Would he even find out I was missing? Would he care if he did? I thought about all the things I had planned to do with my life, the colleges I wanted to apply to, the books I wanted to read, the places I wanted to visit, the person I wanted to become. Would I ever get the chance to do any of it? Or would I just disappear, like so many other girls had disappeared, into a darkness from which there was no escape? The temperature in the container changed as the hours passed. It got colder, so cold that I could see my breath even though I could not actually see anything at all. I huddled in a corner, wrapping my arms around myself, shivering so violently that my teeth chattered. Then, gradually, it got warmer, too warm, stifling, like being trapped inside an oven. I stripped off my jacket, but it did not help. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Then it got cold again. Night and day, I realized. The temperature changes marked the passage of time. Cold when the sun went down, hot when it rose, cold again when it set once more. I had been in this container for over a day. By now, Mama would have filed a missing person report. The police would be looking for me. But where would they look? They did not know I was in a truck. They did not know I was heading to Phoenix. They did not know that I was being transported like cargo, like property, like something less than human. They would look in Millbrook. They would search the school. They would interview my classmates, my teachers, anyone who might have seen me. They would comb the fields and the woods and the abandoned buildings. They would never find me there. Because I was not there. I was hundreds of miles away, and getting farther every minute. On what I think was the second night, I found something. I had been crawling around the container, running my hands over every inch of the floor, searching for anything that might help me. A weapon, a tool, a way out. My fingers closed around something small and cold. Metal, circular. A washer. Just a simple metal washer, probably fallen from something that had been stored in this container before me. It was not much. It was almost nothing. But it was something. I clutched it in my hand and thought, I could use this to make noise. Louder noise than my fists could make. Noise that might carry through the metal walls, might reach someone outside, might alert a passing driver or a pedestrian or anyone who could help. I started tapping on the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. It was a pattern. 3 short taps, pause, 3 more, over and over. I kept it up until my arm ached and my fingers were numb. No one came. I switched to the opposite wall. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Still nothing. I moved to the door, tapping as hard as I could, making the metal ring with each strike. Tap, tap, tap. The truck kept driving. I do not know how long I kept at it. Hours, maybe. My arm burned. My fingers cramped. My hope faded with every unanswered tap. Finally, exhausted beyond measure, I slumped back against the wall and let the washer fall from my grip. It's not working, I said aloud, just to hear a human voice, even if it was only my own. No one can hear me. No one knows where I am. No one is coming. The words echoed off the metal walls, mocking me with their truth. I was alone. I was forgotten. I was going to disappear. And there was nothing I could do about it. I do not know exactly when I started praying. I had grown up going to church, the way most people in Millbrook did. Mama took us every Sunday, and I sang the hymns and listened to the sermons and said the prayers along with everyone else. But I am not sure I ever really believed it, not deep down, not in the way that actually matters. Faith had always felt like something distant to me, something theoretical, something that other people seemed to experience in ways I never quite understood. When people at church talked about feeling God's presence or hearing his voice, I would nod along, but secretly I wondered if they were just imagining things, if they were just telling themselves stories to make the world feel less random and cruel. I wanted to believe, I really did. But wanting to believe and actually believing are not the same thing. Lying there in the darkness of that container, with no hope and no options and no one coming to save me, I found myself thinking about God in a way I never had before. Not as an abstract concept or a character in stories told on Sunday mornings, but as something real. Someone real. Someone who might actually be there, listening, even in this horrible place. It started as a thought, barely formed, more feeling than words. Are you there? I did not say it out loud at first. It felt too strange, too desperate, too much like admitting that I had no other options left. But I had no other options left. I had tried everything. I had screamed. I had pounded. I had tapped. I had searched for a way out. There was no way out. There was only the darkness and the cold and the endless motion of the truck carrying me toward whatever terrible fate awaited me in Phoenix. If God was real, if he actually existed, if he actually cared, if he actually had the power to intervene in the affairs of human beings, then this would be a really good time to prove it. I took a shaky breath. God, I whispered. My voice sounded strange in the darkness, small, thin, barely audible even to myself. I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you care about a girl trapped in a box in the back of a truck in the middle of nowhere. Tears streamed down my face, hot against my cold cheeks. But I don't have anyone else to ask. There's no one else who can help me. I've tried everything. I've done everything I can, and it's not enough. I'm not enough. I choked on a sob, pressing my fist against my mouth to muffle the sound. I don't want to disappear. I don't want to be sold to some monster who will hurt me. I don't want my mama to spend the rest of her life wondering what happened to me. I don't want Noah to grow up without his sister. My body shook with the force of my crying. Please, if you're there, if you're real, if you have ever cared about any of the people who have called out to you throughout history, please hear me now, please see me, please find me. I pressed my hands together the way I had learned in Sunday school, a long-forgotten gesture that suddenly felt like the most natural thing in the world. Send someone, anyone, send help I can't imagine, do something I can't do, reach me in this place where no one knows I am. My voice broke. Please, God, please. I could not say anything else. The words dissolved into sobs, and the sobs dissolved into silence, and the silence stretched on in that cold, dark box. I do not know if I expected an answer. I do not know what an answer would have looked like. A voice from heaven, a sudden vision, the doors of the container magically swinging open. None of those things happened. The darkness remained dark. The silence remained silent. The truck kept driving. But something shifted inside me, something I cannot fully explain, even now. It was not a dramatic transformation. It was not a burst of confidence or peace or certainty. It was more like a small flame, tiny, flickering, barely there at all, but present, alive, real. For the first time since I had woken up in this nightmare, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was not alone. I picked up the washer again, and I started tapping. Miles away, on a stretch of interstate I would later learn was Interstate 10, somewhere between El Paso and Phoenix, a state trooper named Marcus Webb was ending his shift. He had been working for 16 hours. His eyes burned with exhaustion. His back ached from sitting in his cruiser for so long. All he wanted was to go home, take a hot shower, eat whatever leftover pizza was still in his refrigerator, and collapse into bed. The road was quiet, just the usual parade of trucks and cars making their way across the desert landscape. Nothing suspicious, nothing unusual, nothing that required his attention. He passed truck after truck, barely glancing at them, his mind already at home in his small apartment with the creaky floors and the view of the parking lot. Then he passed a blue truck. And something happened. He would later describe it as a feeling, a pull, a nudge, like someone had pressed a hand against his chest and whispered, "Pay attention." He shook it off. He was tired. He was imagining things. The truck was perfectly ordinary, an older model, a little worn, but nothing out of the ordinary for this stretch of road. There was no reason to stop it. No violation, no probable cause. He kept driving. But the feeling did not go away. If anything, it got stronger. It was like an alarm going off in his head, getting louder and more insistent with every mile he put between himself and that blue truck. "That's ridiculous," he muttered to himself. "There's nothing wrong with that truck. I'm just tired. I need to go home and get some sleep." He glanced in his rearview mirror. The blue truck was disappearing into the distance. The feeling in his chest became almost painful. Why do I feel like I need to check that truck? He asked the question out loud, as if hoping someone would answer. But there was no one in the car except him, just the empty passenger seat and the quiet hum of the engine. He drove for another 30 seconds. Then another 15. Then he said a word that his mother would have slapped him for, turned his cruiser around, and headed back toward the blue truck. The driver of the truck was calm when Marcus pulled him over. Too calm, maybe, but that was not evidence of anything. Some people were just calm. Some people had nothing to hide and knew it and had no reason to be nervous. The paperwork was clean. The registration was current. The manifest listed the cargo as household goods being transported to Phoenix. Everything was in order. "You can go ahead and check the cargo if you want," the driver said, a little too casually. "Nothing in there except furniture and boxes." Marcus looked at him. Something was wrong. He could feel it. He could feel it the way you feel someone staring at you from across a room, even when you cannot see them. He could feel it the way you feel a storm coming, even when the sky is still clear. But feelings were not evidence. Feelings were not probable cause. Feelings did not hold up in court. "That won't be necessary," Marcus said. "You're free to go." He handed back the paperwork. The driver smiled. "Have a good night, officer." He started to walk back to his truck. Marcus stood there, watching him go. The feeling in his chest was screaming now. It was not a nudge anymore. It was not a whisper. It was a full-throated shout, telling him that if he let this truck drive away, something terrible would happen, something irreversible. "Wait," he called out. The driver stopped. "I changed my mind. I want to take a look at the cargo." The driver's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes, something cold, something calculating. "Like I said, it's just furniture. But sure, if you want to waste your time, be my guest." He walked Marcus to the back of the truck, moving slowly, taking his time. Marcus noticed that his hands were shaking slightly, just slightly, barely visible in the darkness. The driver unlocked the cargo container and swung open the doors. Inside, Marcus could see shapes in the darkness. Boxes, furniture, just like the manifest said. "See, nothing suspicious." Marcus nodded slowly. He should let it go. He should apologize for the inconvenience and let the man drive away. But instead, he walked closer. And he put his hand on the metal wall of the container. Inside, I heard everything. I heard the truck slow down and pull over. I heard the muffled sounds of conversation, a new voice, different from the ones I had heard before. I heard footsteps walking around the truck. I heard the cargo doors open. My heart raced so fast I thought it might explode. Someone was here. Someone was checking the truck. If I could just make them hear me, if I could just let them know I was here. I grabbed the washer and started tapping on the wall. Softly at first, afraid that if I tapped too loud, the driver would hear me and stop the inspection somehow. Tap, tap, tap. I pressed my ear against the wall, straining to hear. Nothing. I tapped harder. Tap, tap, tap. Still nothing. Desperation clawed at me. This might be my only chance. If this person left, whoever they were, I might never get another opportunity. The truck would keep driving. It would reach Phoenix. And then... I did not let myself finish the thought. Instead, I tapped as hard as I could. Tap, tap, tap. Over and over. Tap, tap, tap. Please hear me, please hear me, please hear me, please hear me. Marcus almost missed it. The tapping was so soft, barely audible over the sounds of the night, the hum of distant traffic, the wind moving across the desert. At first, he thought it was nothing, just the metal contracting in the cool night air, just his imagination playing tricks on his exhausted mind. But then he heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. He leaned closer to the wall of the container. Tap, tap, tap. His heart stopped. Is someone in there? He shouted. And from inside the metal box, he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Marcus stepped back, his hand already reaching for his radio. Dispatch, I need backup at my location immediately. Possible kidnapping situation. Repeat, possible kidnapping. I need units here now. The driver tried to run. He did not get far. I heard the voices first. Shouting, the sound of a struggle. Then sirens, growing louder and closer, the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my life. Then light. Blinding, brilliant, overwhelming light, as the doors of my prison swung open for the first time in what felt like forever. I could not see anything at first. My eyes had been in darkness for so long that the sudden brightness was physically painful. I threw my arm over my face, cowering in the corner, not yet able to believe that this was real. It's okay, you're safe now. Hands reached for me, gentle hands, helping hands. They wrapped me in blankets. Someone gave me water and I drank it so fast I nearly choked. Someone was crying. I think it was me. Someone was asking me questions, my name, where I was from if I was hurt. I tried to answer, but words would not come. All I could do was shake and cry and cling to the blanket like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. Get the medics, someone shouted. She needs to go to the hospital. They lifted me out of the container. My legs would not support me. They had been cramped in that small space for too long. Strong arms carried me toward an ambulance, its lights flashing red and blue against the dark desert sky. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I looked back at the truck that had been my prison. Police officers swarmed around it. The driver was on the ground, handcuffs around his wrists, while another officer read him his rights. He would not be hurting anyone else. Because someone had heard me. I woke up in a hospital room. For a moment, I did not know where I was. The walls were white. The sheets were scratchy. An IV dripped steadily into my arm. Then memory came crashing back, and I gasped, sitting up so fast that I nearly yanked the IV out. Easy, easy, a voice said. You're safe, you're in the hospital, you're okay. I turned to see a nurse standing beside my bed, her face kind and concerned. My mama, I croaked. Where's my mama? She's on her way. She'll be here soon. She's been on the phone with the police every hour since you disappeared. She never gave up looking for you. The tears came again. I could not stop them. I did not try. The nurse held my hand and let me cry. Later, much later, after Mama had arrived and sobbed and held me so tight, I thought she might never let go. After Noah had come in with red-rimmed eyes and refused to leave my side, after what felt like 100 doctors and nurses and police officers had come and gone, I asked to see the trooper who had found me. They told me he was in the hallway. He had been there for hours, waiting, wanting to make sure I was okay. Send him in, I said. Marcus Webb was tall, with graying hair and kind eyes. He stood awkwardly in the doorway of my hospital room, as if he was not sure he had the right to be there. Hi, he said. I'm the one who stopped the truck. I know, my voice was still hoarse. How did you know? He shook his head slowly. That's the thing, I didn't. There was no reason to stop that truck. The paperwork was clean. The driver wasn't doing anything wrong. I should have driven right past. So why didn't you? He was quiet for a long moment. I can't explain it, he finally said. I just felt pushed, like someone wanted me there. Like someone was telling me that if I didn't turn around and check that truck, I would regret it for the rest of my life. My eyes filled with tears. I prayed, I whispered. When I was in there, in the dark, I prayed for God to send help, to send someone, anyone. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. His own eyes were glistening. Then I guess he answered, he said quietly, because I don't have any other explanation for why I did what I did. He left soon after that, but not before promising to visit me when I was feeling better. He kept that promise. He has kept it every year since, visiting on the anniversary of my rescue, checking in to make sure I am okay. We do not talk much about that night. We do not need to. We both know what happened. We both know what it meant. We were both part of a miracle. The weeks and months that followed my rescue were not easy. The police investigation revealed the scope of what I had been caught up in. The driver and his accomplices were part of a human trafficking ring that had been operating for years, moving girls and women across state lines, selling them to buyers who used them in ways I cannot bring myself to describe. I was one of dozens they had taken. Many had never been found. I was lucky. I was found. But luck does not fully explain it. Luck does not explain why Marcus Webb felt compelled to turn around. Luck does not explain why he heard my tapping when he almost walked away. Luck does not explain the 1,000 tiny things that had to happen in exactly the right sequence for me to be rescued. I know what explains it. I know who explains it. Recovery was a long process. I had nightmares for months, dreams where I was back in the container, alone in the darkness, feeling the truck carry me toward a fate I could not escape. I went to therapy. I took medication. I learned to talk about what happened to me instead of burying it inside where it could fester and poison me. Slowly, gradually, painfully, I healed. Not completely. I do not think anyone ever heals completely from something like that. There are still days when I cannot be in enclosed spaces. There are still moments when I hear a certain sound, metal on metal, an engine rumbling, and I am transported back to that container, if only for a second. There are still nights when I wake up gasping, certain that I am trapped again. But I am alive. I am free. I am still here. And every single day, I am grateful for that. I graduated from high school 2 years after my rescue. I went to college. I studied criminal justice. I wanted to understand the system that had nearly failed me, and I wanted to learn how to make it better. How to catch the people who prey on the vulnerable. How to find the girls who are still trapped in containers, still crying out for help, still wondering if anyone will ever hear them. I work with survivor advocacy organizations now. I speak to law enforcement agencies about the signs of trafficking. I mentor girls who have been through what I went through, helping them find their way back from the darkness. I never stopped praying. In fact, I pray more now than I ever did before. Every morning, every night, and countless times throughout the day. Not because I believe that prayer is a magic formula that guarantees everything will work out the way I want. I know better than that. I know that many girls prayed in containers just like mine and were never found. I know that the world is full of suffering and injustice and unanswered pleas. But I also know that God heard me. I know that in my darkest, most hopeless moment, when no one on earth knew where I was, someone was listening. Someone who loved me. Someone who cared about my life when I was just a scared 16-year-old girl in the back of a truck. Someone who reached out through a tired state trooper and pulled me back from the edge of oblivion. I cannot explain why he saved me and not others. I do not have an answer for that question that feels satisfying or complete. The mystery of why some prayers seem to be answered and others do not is one I will probably wrestle with for the rest of my life. But I have learned to live with mystery. I have learned that faith does not mean having all the answers. It means trusting even when you do not understand. It means calling out even when you cannot see who might be listening. It means tapping on the walls of your prison over and over, believing that somehow, some way, your signal will reach the right person at the right moment. Every year on my birthday, I light a candle. I put it by my window, the same way I did the first year after my rescue, and I watch the flame flicker against the glass. Outside, the world goes on, cars driving past, people walking their dogs, children playing in the streets. Normal life, safe life. The kind of life I almost lost forever. I close my eyes, and I whisper the words that have become my annual ritual. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for sending help I could never have imagined. And then I sit with the silence for a while, remembering the darkness of the container. Remembering the fear and the despair and the absolute certainty that I was going to die. Remembering the prayer I whispered when I had nothing else left. Remembering the moment the doors opened and light flooded in. I do not share this story for pity or attention. I share it because there are people out there right now who feel as hopeless as I did in that container. People who are trapped, maybe not in a literal metal box, but in situations that feel just as dark and inescapable. People who are crying out for help and wondering if anyone can hear them. I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to know that even in the darkest, quietest places, there is someone who can reach you. I want you to know that prayer is not a waste of time. It is not just words disappearing into empty space. It is a signal, a beacon, a hand reaching out through the darkness toward the one who made you and loves you and has not forgotten you exist. Maybe you are going through something right now that feels impossible. Maybe you have tried everything and nothing has worked. Maybe you have reached the end of your own strength and you do not know where else to turn. Turn to him. Call out, cry out, whisper if that is all you can manage. Do not give up on the possibility that help might come from places you cannot predict, in ways you cannot imagine, through people who have no logical reason to help you but feel pushed to do so anyway. Because that is how it happened for me. A tired trooper at the end of his shift. A feeling he could not explain. A decision to turn around, and everything logical told him to keep driving. A tap, tap, tap that should have been too soft to hear. A door swinging open. A life saved. A prayer answered. I do not know what you believe about God. I do not know if you have faith or if you have given up on faith or if you have never had it in the first place. I do not know what you have been through or what you are going through right now. But I know what I experienced. I know what saved me. And I am telling you, as someone who was as lost and hopeless as any person can be, that there is a God who hears. There is a God who sees. There is a God who reaches into the darkest places and pulls people out. Not always, not everyone. I do not pretend to understand why some are saved and some are not. That mystery is too big for me. But sometimes the prayer reaches someone. Sometimes the trooper turns around. Sometimes the tapping is heard. Sometimes the doors open and light floods in. And sometimes, a girl who should have disappeared forever gets to grow up and tell her story. That is my miracle. That is my testimony. That is the reason I will never stop believing that even when everything seems lost, hope is not foolish. So if you are in a dark place right now, I am asking you to do something that might feel ridiculous. I am asking you to do something that might feel pointless. I am asking you to do something that you might think will not make any difference at all. Pray. Just try it. You do not have to know the right words. You do not have to follow a formula. You do not have to believe with perfect certainty that it will work. Just speak. Just call out. Just reach toward something bigger than yourself and ask for help. Because I was in a container in the back of a truck, alone in the darkness, and I whispered a desperate prayer with almost no faith at all. And someone heard me. Someone answered. Someone sent help I could never have imagined. And now I am here, lighting my candle, telling my story, living a life I almost lost. If he could hear me in that container, he can hear you wherever you are. Do not give up. Do not stop tapping on the walls. Do not stop calling out into the darkness. Because you never know who might be listening. You never know who might turn around. You never know when the doors might open and light might flood in. And you never know when your prayer might be the one that reaches heaven and brings a miracle back down to earth. I am living proof that it happens. I am living proof that God is real. I am living proof that even in the darkest, quietest places, you are never truly alone. So keep praying. Keep hoping. Keep believing. Because someone is listening. Someone cares. And someone might be on his way to find you right now. You just have to hold on long enough to be found. My name is Lily Monroe. I was 16 years old when I was taken. I am 28 years old now. I am alive. I am free. I am forever grateful. And I will spend the rest of my life telling anyone who will listen that, when you cry out to God from the depths of your despair, your words do not disappear into empty space. They reach someone. And sometimes, more often than you might think, that someone answers. Trust me. I know.